Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm joined by my co-host Raj and Fab. Week 5 concluded last night with the Kansas City Chiefs moving to 5-0 with a win over the now 2-3 New Orleans Saints. Quick tidbit about the night: Carr got hurt. It was oblique, I believe, injury, and looks like he's going to miss a couple weeks there. So something to monitor for everyone. So we'll quickly break down some key takeaways from the Monday Nighter, and then dive into our popular love-hate segment. For those who are not familiar with it, we each pick 2 players that we love and hate for the upcoming week, and then we share how we did from the following week to keep ourselves accountable. If you missed it, please check out our last episode where we recap the Sunday slate of games and break down our winners and losers. So, guys, before we dive in, please follow us on all the social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, as well as subscribe, like, and rate our podcast on wherever you find them, and or on everyone if you want. If you're feeling extra supportive, go on every single.
I have to say, Threads is wild, man. You go on Thread and there's some stuff you don't want to see. I don't know about you guys, but
I downloaded it with the hype and then quickly deleted it about a week later.
There's a lot of odd stuff there.
It's hard to take over Twitter or X. Like they had that one shot when Twitter went down, right? That's where Thread came around.
And the name sucks too.
The name does suck.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's definitely not my favorite.
Mind you, X isn't any better, but no one calls it X. So
yeah, I don't think anyone really
X will give it to you.
Or people when they call it X, they'll say formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
Which is weird too. But
it's always going to be Twitter in my mind, and it's always going to be a blue little bird as a logo. Never going to be that black X. Like doesn't do it for me. Elon doesn't do it for me. Sorry, bud.
He was at the Steelers game on Sunday, actually, Mr. Musk. But did you hear about like they didn't want to? What is it? NBC didn't want to highlight and say what his name was when he was doing it, or show his face. They had him. The camera was from behind. Never showed his face on camera. Apparently, it had to do with his. Apparently it had to do with his political views and how he's like supporting Trump or whatever. So I don't know.
The flailing NBC news.
Yeah. Anyways,
that's so stupid
for what it is. But guys, big news of the day came. Jets fired Robert Saleh. So obviously we know that Woody Johnson listens to the pod and definitely agreed with what we had to say yesterday. But yeah, I'm not overly shocked though. Is anyone like completely shocked about this?
No, I'm the only thing I might be shocked about is just the like how early within the season. But then again, like they're 2-3, so they probably figure that shake it up now and see if something can change. That way they have a chance to make the playoffs and go for a run. But I'm not. We spoke about it yesterday at length, right? I mean, it's clearly Aaron Rodgers' team. And Woody Johnson knows it, so.
I just think there should have been more accountability on Nathaniel Hackett because the offense is the issue. The defense has been very good and has kept them in games. And we would all think that Robert Saleh is more in charge of the defense. But I was listening to a podcast that Dominic Foxworth was in, Foxworth of ESPN. He was saying that players that people that he knows players in that locker room, and they're saying the environment was not good. So I think more stuff will come out of it in the coming days.
Yeah, well, there was also reports saying that he was thinking about firing Hackett as well before he, in fact, got fired. I don't know how well that would have gone over with Rodgers, but maybe that had played a part with it. Like maybe he went to Woody Johnson and like told them, like, "Hey, I'm thinking about firing Hackett." I'm sure he needs owner approval on that, and
for sure.
Imagine what it would have done to Aaron Rodgers and the turmoil from that. So maybe it was like there's more into it.
Yeah, Hackett. It was Rodgers was Hackett's best man.
Best man.
At his wedding.
Yeah, a lot of. I don't want to call it nepotism, but like it's just not. It's a weird relationship, but
Very.
Now Woody Johnson's like all in on Aaron Rodgers. You know, like you got to do whatever it is that you have to do to make your quarterback happy. That way he plays well, and that this is just part of it right now.
So let's get into some key takeaways from Monday Night Football. What stood out for you, Raj?
Yeah, I think what stood out for me from the Monday Night Football matchup was that the Chiefs defense is a wagon. Steve Spagnuolo is the real MVP. The book on Carr is kind of similar to the book on Jared Goff, where when you pressure him, he struggles mightily. And Carr's quarterback rating when he was pressured was a lowly 26, and Spags brought the heat the entire game. I think if you guys remember Seth Galina, he came on our show during the summer and he said the key to the Saints season was going to be their offensive line, and their pass blocking rating over the past 3 games has been one of the worst in the league. So I think that has led to Derek Carr's really poor play. And I know he's injured now, but as of now, he does not look like a QB1 anymore. He's averaging like 9.5 points per game over the last 3 games. So I think it's Spagnuolo and that Chiefs defense is really leading that team right now because the offense is still sputtering. And Derek Carr, whether it's whenever he comes back, have to downgrade him as like more of a QB2 right now.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. And well, I mean, look, their offense is sputtering, but how many teams would still be running with your top option and your top wide receiver and top running back both out, right?
That's the leadership, I think. Like the leadership that's there. It's obviously Mahomes, and Mahomes always gets a ton of credit. But I think, and Reed too, but Spagnuolo is an amazing defensive coordinator. Chris Jones is a beast. Carl Loftus, we talked about him last week. Like that team is really good.
Listen, despite all of their offensive shortcomings, right, they still scored 26 points, which is against a decent defense in the Saints. So,
totally.
Yeah, like he's still going to get it done. Maybe he's not doing it. He may not be doing it on a fantasy perspective, but he did throw for over 300 and something yards last night, right? And led his team to victory. And the Saints defense is not no slouch either, right? So
no. But now for me, I don't want to derail this too much, but like now, like how do you rate the skill positions for the New Orleans Saints? Like Olave and Shahid and Kamara. Down that Derek Carr is going to be out. Like I know they're on bye next week, right? But like it's Olave has been pretty much non-existent this entire fantasy season. Shahid's been good, but it calls into a lot of questions all of their skill positions post bye when they come back, because now it's 2 weeks in. I think Guido said it, like they were going to win the Super Bowl, and now 3 weeks later, it's like, okay,
yeah, but that's just
it's the NFL.
The ups and downs of the NFL.
Yeah, it's just what it is. Exactly. It's just people need something to talk about, right? So
100%.
What about you, Fab? What was your main takeaway from last night?
Kareem Hunt is your RB1 rest of season, and he is an actual league winner, in my opinion. Since to take a page out of Rogers' very, very full book of who league winners are. I think Kareem Hunt is legit jokes aside. Like he gets 41 carries in the last 2 weeks, which is second most. So he's being used. 171 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions, 32 yards, and those are also against 2 very good run defenses. Like I hope you broke the bank on him when we spoke about him a few weeks earlier, when the Chiefs were just talking about bringing him back into the fold and making him a part of the offense because Pacheco went down. Because he looks like he's going to be like an every week starter, low end RB1 rest of the season. Nacc, I know you picked him up. I'm sure you're very happy on your team because now you have a guy that's going to be carrying the rock, 20 times a game. He's going to be getting those PPR receptions too every now and then. Like, and
P. Ryan really wasn't involved as much last night either. I don't think he didn't get 1 catch last night.
He didn't get 1 carry. He got 1 catch.
Oh, 1 catch. Sorry, he didn't get a carry.
He didn't get a carry.
They actually gave Steele, I think, 3 or 4 carries, if I'm not mistaken.
5.
There we go, 5 carries. But he also fumbled the ball. So, again.
Steele is obviously not the guy. And Kareem Hunt, like Andy Reid, man, he likes his players. You know what I mean? Like, he was an Andy Reid darling since the very beginning. And it's just showing that, those things don't really
and he trusts him. He trusts him. So
you're not worried about Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
No. Should I be?
He wasn't injured. It was all mental health. I don't think they have elevated him in the first place, and
But
Reed never really liked him
yeah,
to begin
Clyde.
with.
Who liked him?
Well, Patrick
Who,
Mahomes. That's why they
who
drafted
liked
him.
him?
But
Yeah, well,
Clyde
I mean, they wanted to.
Edwards-Helaire was
I think they were forced. They picked him. What was pick 32 there at the last
yeah.
pick of the first round, and because they
He had
needed a running back. Remember, everyone was like they
yeah.
needed a running back.
Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
Mm,
Was it Charles or was it Hunt's first time where he got suspended? I
You're
think it was
right. It
Hunt.
was Hunt's first time. Yeah, good
Yeah,
call.
Jamal Charles
no,
is going back. Yeah,
no.
it
I
wasn't
think
Jamal Charles.
CH preceded Hunt.
Yes, that's what I'm
Or it
saying.
might Shady McCoy was there too for a bit.
Shady McCoy didn't they have like two Williams players.
Yeah, but that's like a couple years ago. They had like Damian Williams, and
Oh
then
That's
they
it.
had the
yeah.
other
Yeah,
guy Williams
Oh yeah, he was amazing in the Super
in the
Bowl.
playoffs. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They had those two guys there, but I'm pretty sure it was because Hunt left because of his troubles, and then they needed a running back. They didn't have anyone, and they drafted Hilaire. But obviously did not work out the way they envisioned
No,
it.
Kareem
But
Hunt is clearly a guy there,
Good
and he
for Hunt,
understands the
man.
office.
Good for Hunt. What he did was not good, but
no,
somehow he was able to rehabilitate his career, I guess,
yeah, and
compared
this
to
guy
Ray
was on the
Rice.
couch, man. This guy was watching
The guy
from the
was
couch. Like
legit
that's crazy,
on
and
the
like how
couch.
he comes in and he's
Massive
dominating,
usage,
which
massive
is
usage. So
crazy.
yeah, he's definitely my winner after last night.
Well, on the rejuvenating talk, my main takeaway was Juju Smith-Schuster. Actually, there was a lot of chatter that he was going to come into Rasheed Rice's role when he went down, but everyone was a bit skeptical, with the knees, and he hasn't looked great for a couple years. But 8 targets, 7 catches, 130 yards. He was a huge part of that Super Bowl 2 years ago as
Yeah,
well. That Super Bowl team made some really nice plays, so Mahomes definitely trusts him. His only drop came at the goal. It was at the goal line, but the pass I rewatched it. I thought it was on Schuster, but it was really on Mahomes. Mahomes threw it a bit behind him, so when he went back to grab it, it went off his hands, and it was intercepted. So cool to see that he had a role. I'm sure a lot of people picked him up. It's going to be hard, I guess, to keep him on your bench this week with buys because they are, in fact, on buy as well. But definitely a player I'm keeping my eye on going forward.
I think he'll be picked up in Bush League this week for sure.
Yeah, I think I dropped him. I dropped him because I needed. I had him, picked him up for free, and then I had to drop him for Hopkins because of I have buy troubles this week. So I needed a body, and the rest of my team is hurt. So. Let's move along to our love-hate record. What we did last week. So we were an astounding 10-2 as a collective, as Mike Tomlin would say. That's pretty good, people. I think that's our best week since this started by far. Fab and I went 4-0, and Roger batted 500 for the second week in a row. So where Fab won, he had Jordan Love, Ramondre Stevenson. Um, I had Justin Fields and Travis Kelsey. Um, and where the hates were Patrick Mahomes. So another underwhelming performance, another under 15-point fantasy football week, and also Brees Hall. And I had Aaron Rodgers and Deontay Johnson that didn't perform too well. So Rod, you won with Josh Downs, who had a really nice showing. You also won with Kamara. You thought he was going to be it was going to be a difficult afternoon, and that was the case. Deshaun Watson, we tried to show
Whoa,
some
whoa, whoa,
love,
whoa,
but
whoa, whoa, whoa. No. Whoa, I said Ben Watson.
oh, you said Ben
I
Watson.
said
Okay.
Patriot legend, tight end,
Okay. Okay.
Saints legend, tight end, Ben Watson. I never said Ben
How many
Watson.
points did he get?
0.
Oh, okay.
And then you had Brown and Moss in the backfield in Cincinnati, but
That could have been a
Brown ended up
push. That could have been
Brown
a
ended up
push.
That could have been
okay.
a push. That could have been a
Brown ended
push.
up
That could
going
have been a
off
push.
pretty nicely, but Moss obviously I think Moss got hurt too, so that's probably why his production was a little bit
This
lower.
is the
So
last week I'm putting. This is the last
we'll
week I'm
give you a
putting two
push.
players. It's the last week.
Yeah, you're getting burned. You're getting
I'm
burned
never
on the
putting
two
two players
players.
again.
You're getting burned on the players.
You're going
Well,
all
Raj,
in,
there's
man.
no time like the presence to change the trend this week. So without further ado,
Let's go.
who's your loves for this week?
First matchup, I love Najee Harris at the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, guys, the Raiders are a mess. We've seen it, and I think Harris will be primed to benefit. I know he hasn't been a standout so far this year, and I do think the Steelers are missing Jalen Warren, as we talked about yesterday, but the Raiders lead the league in missed tackles on defense, and they're giving up the 7 most points to running backs, and they allow the fourth most yards after catch. So I think Najee can not only have a really good game on the ground, but also be a benefactor in the passing game as well. And he's been actually more efficient as a pass catcher this year than he's been as a runner. So I think he could exploit those weaknesses, and I think it'll be another weak showing from the Raiders, and Harris might cash in.
Yeah, and they already declared Cordell Patterson out for Sunday, and Jalen Warren's doubtful. So he's got that backfield all to himself. Funny thing, the backup was a substitute teacher
I saw
not
that.
that long ago,
Yeah, I saw
which
that.
which was super funny to see. I'm like, wow,
It's kind of cool.
substitute teacher, and now you're running in the NFL, which
pretty
was
great.
pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I definitely have to agree. It's one of the matchups I saw that I was keeping an eye on, and look, he hasn't scored this year, so I think he's due. So I tend to agree with you. What about your second matchup you love this week?
Yeah, second matchup I love, and we talked about a little bit with Derek Carr out, but I still think I love Rasheed Shaheed versus the Bucs. Looks like he's emerging as the WR1 for the Saints. He out over the last 2 games, he's out targeted Chris Olave 20 targets to 14. I think he's showing his growing importance to the offense. In week 5 that just happened against the Chiefs, Derek Carr was Rashid Shaheed was the first read for Carr on 32% of the pass plays versus only 16 for Olave. So he's a big play pass threat, as we all know, as we've all seen so far this year. And the Bucs allow the 5th most completed air yards in the league, and we just saw them get absolutely lit up by Kirk Cousins and company. So Shaheed is the consensus WR32, so it puts him in flex territory, but I would fire him up with confidence. And a lot of people really liked Spencer Rattler out of the draft, and he looked really, really impressive in pro days. I believe he was at the combine too.
Preseason, he looked nice too.
Preseason, he looked really good as well. So it can't get any worse than it's been for Carr over the past 3 games. It's literally gone back to how Carr was last year. So I think it could be an interesting spark to fire up the rookie.
I wonder if you think they'll trust him to throw if need be, because as we know, the Bucs can put up points quickly.
Look, like the thing with the Saints is the running game hasn't been great either from an efficiency standpoint. So I think the way to beat the Bucs is still through the air. And again, we saw against the Falcons. We've seen it so far this year. So I think they'll put the reins on him a little bit, but he has a big arm, and he has guys who could get deep, who could win deep. So I think, don't start Spencer Rattler, but I still think he could keep at least Rasheed Shaheed sustainable over the course of the next few weeks.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm always skeptical when a rookie comes in mid-season, but again, defense haven't seen him yet, so maybe he could surprise. And you're right, did have a huge arm and has impressed when you've seen him on paper. So let's see what happens this week. What about you, Fab? Who do you like this week?
Don't shoot me. I can't believe it's week 6 and this is happening. But Daniel Jones versus the Bengals. The Bengals defense right now, they're a bit of a dumpster fire. They're giving up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've surrendered 2 or more passing touchdowns in the last 4 games. QBs on average are rushing for 33 yards, so that's already putting up a decent floor for him. Bengals are 2nd worst in sacks, so there's not really pressuring the quarterback all that much. Their defense can't really stop a nosebleed. And Jones has been pretty good as of late. He put up 24 points against Seattle. He's actually QB 15 on the year, which is higher than Mahomes. And with the return of Malik Neighbors, I think he's primed for another 20-plus point outing and brings him up into QB territory for week 6. It's a defense that can be had. It's an exploitable matchup. In a 2 QB league, he's in there 100%. And even in a 1 QB league, you have to consider with the other matchups that are out there if Daniel Jones is in a better spot. The only thing that I have concern about, but I'm throwing caution to the wind, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Jones is 1-12 in primetime games, and they're playing the Bengals in primetime. However, on Sunday night primetime games, he's 1-1. So just take that for a grain of salt. Okay. He's batting 500. So you know what?
Grasping at everything right now.
I went 4-0 last week. Let's have some fun with this. I think Daniel Jones is going to have a very nice week. And if the Giants beat out the Bengals and go to 3-3, that division just became very interesting all of a sudden. But that's for a conversation on Monday.
Shout out to Marco and Guido, who are going to be in attendance for that game.
That is going to be a fantastic game to watch. Like low key can even be a very high scoring game. Like both, I think the Bengals can obviously put up points. And it's going to force the Giants to
they got to stop someone at some point, right? Like we were all laughing at Washington, but the Bengals are like it's complete disaster on defense.
Are we sure Neighbors is going to be available?
That was my next question.
We're not 100% sure, but I mean, listen, the concussion protocol, and I haven't heard any news about the practice this week or yesterday, but typically after a week they should come back from concussion.
Because he should have cleared by now, no?
Well, he didn't clear for Sunday. Said it was close, like they're taking it up all the way to game time, but I guess they didn't want to risk it. Yet to be seen.
This is a scenario where it's good to have either Darius Slayton or Wan'Dale Robinson, just in case, because they both played well last game.
For sure.
Yeah, and Daniel Jones, for whatever reason,
it's enough Daniel Jones.
I'm just saying he can't throw the long ball to anybody else.
I didn't want to harp on him again. But who's your second guy, Fab? Who do you like? Who else do you like this week?
So my second guy, in the last 2 weeks, this player has put up 50 fantasy points, 5-0. He's 37 for 166, 2 touchdowns. He's also added 9 receptions for 119 yards. It's not CMC. It's not Barkley. It's not LT out of retirement. This is DeAndre Swift we're talking about, the running back for the Chicago Bears. He's put up massive points and the forgotten RB1. This week he has another plus matchup versus everyone's favorite run defense that gives up the 4th most fantasy points, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know they're playing in London. I understand that. It's going to be an early game, so get your lineup set up. Again, I am throwing caution to the wind once again, ladies and gentlemen. The Jaguars just let Trey Sermon, the backup running back for the Indianapolis Colts, walk all over them. So I think DeAndre Swift here is a must start. I don't care that the game's in London, like I mentioned. To me, Swift is going to swiftly hit RB1 numbers for the 3rd straight week, and you'll be very happy that you did not cut him in your lineup.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was really going to drop him, but man, the first few weeks it looked pretty bleak in that backfield. They may have finally found a way to use him properly and efficiently.
It's a byproduct also of the offense in general running better in Chicago, and you see that with Caleb Williams, how he's slinging the ball a lot more, and that's obviously helping the running game as well by extension. Again, the defense, it's a good matchup. The defense can be had. And I think this is just going to play into to the offense just operating a lot more efficiently, like it has been for the last few weeks.
Fab, would you sell high on Swift if he has
after this week? Yeah, because his let me quickly go over who the next opponents are for the Chicago Bears. Bear with me for a second. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, you have all the puns today.
I'm a pun type of guy. So after this week, obviously they go on bye. They come back. They're facing Washington. Not horrible. Then they go up against Arizona, which again can be had. New England, Green Bay doesn't scare you, but then it gets very bad. Like around week 12, they go up against Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota again, and Detroit. So by like week 11, you want to get them off your roster, and right after the bye, if possible, too, if he still has a high value on him, because right around the time where you need your players to set up for that playoff push, he's going to go up against some very tough defenses, and that will obviously not be in your favor.
Yeah, definitely a sell high candidate for sure, especially 100%. given how shifty he can be. I'm going to go, my first player here, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins versus the Colts. He was injured to start the season, but he's been ramping up week after week. He had a great game in Week 3 versus Green Bay, but then put up a dud on Monday Night Football in Miami. That was a dumpster fire game from start to finish. So I don't think anyone really finished with good numbers. But look for him to be. I think uh, he's fresh, coming off a bye as well, and he gets an indie team that's given up the 7th most points to wide receivers. So look for him to be the focal point in the passing game in Week 6. We still don't know if Levis is healthy enough to start or if it's going to be Mason Rudolph, but I think I have more confidence in Mason Rudolph at this point than I do in Levis. So I'm definitely firing up DeAndre Hopkins this week.
Why Hopkins and not Ridley? Out of curiosity, Nacc.
I just like Hopkins more. I feel like he's getting more and more targets as he was ramped up from his injury. I still think he's the WR1 in that offense, and I think he's still going to be the main guy. He had a hamstring, right? So those things take time. He wasn't on the field all that often, but I think the last game saw 9 targets. So I think it's just going to get. He's the main. I feel like he's the main guy there. Ridley's the WR2, so I'd start Hopkins over Ridley. Although people might not have a choice and start.
I remember
Yeah, probably
someone
start.
saying the same thing at the beginning of the season, how DeAndre Hopkins was going to be the guy in this offense. I forget who it was, but
No, he's always going to be the WR1 in
of course he
Tennessee.
is, man. Of course.
I want to look up the stats quickly. Oh yeah.
What stats do you want to look up, Roger?
No, Ridley's only had one good game. He had the 25-pointer against.
He had his first two games.
It was the first game, I think.
Second game.
Or second game.
His first game wasn't a bad game. Like he had 7 targets, 550 receiving yards. It wasn't. They did play Chicago defense. Like for all accounts, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't great.
They're both not doing well.
His big
No,
game.
no. They're both. Hopkins had one good game. Told you it was Week 3 versus.
Exactly.
And then it was the Miami game, which like no one had a good game. It was just an ugly game. Then there was their bye. So, but you saw him getting more and more targets as the year progressed. So I just think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nacc. I think they're more of a running team. I think they're going to run the ball way more coming out of the bye because they can't trust any of their quarterbacks.
For sure, but just the Eagles is an exploitable defense, so they might and they might be down, right? So that's my other thing is they're going to have to most likely pass a little bit more as well. The game is, sorry, it's not. They're not playing the Eagles. They're playing the Colts. What am I saying?
Yeah,
they played yeah. Anyways, the second player that I love for Week 6 is Amari Cooper. Actually, that's who's playing against the Eagles. So everyone was expecting him to go off last week versus the Washington team, giving up the most points to wide receivers. But he finished with 4 catches on 10 targets, 60 yards. So very underwhelming. Again, a lot of people calling for Deshaun Watson's head in that offense. I'm hoping something happens and Jameis Winston kind of comes into this game, but he gets another shot this week at a really shaky secondary. He gets an Eagles team giving up the 4th most points to wide receivers. So I think he's due for a big game, and I think this is the week. This is the week where you'll see another breakout performance from Amari Cooper. Like I don't think they go 2 weeks in a row without lighting up a really shoddy defense. Like you're getting 2 layups in 2 weeks. Like one of them you're bound to do good, and if you can't, well, there's more problems than we let on.
Nacc, this is a ballsy call, and I like it.
Yeah,
I really like the matchup, man. It's again, there's buys, right? So
yeah.
So this is the week I should have taken Deshaun Watson as my love.
Potentially, yes. Potentially, we'll give you half marks if it does come in. Okay.
Free Amari Cooper, please, man. Free Amari Cooper.
Free Amari Cooper.
He's
trade him the hell out of there.
He's part of trade rumors again. Like I feel like
Chiefs is the big one. I think.
Yeah,
that'd be perfect.
Dude, Amari Cooper doesn't get any respect, man. The guy's been putting up solid numbers every single year with subpar quarterback play, and he gets no respect, man.
Yeah,
no respect.
Okay, well, that about does it for our loves. Raj, who do you hate this week?
Yes, the first matchup I hate this week is Justin Herbert at Denver. Herbert's season has been mired in consistent pressure, and it's led to many nagging injuries so far. His offensive line has allowed the fourth highest pressure rate in the NFL, and now they're coming off a bye in week 6, and he's up against the Broncos defense that is allowing the 6th fewest fantasy points to QBs and generating the 3rd most amount of pressure. So it's a recipe for disaster for Herbert. We all love his talent, but the Chargers right now are hesitant to throw. They become solely a running team. And quite frankly, he's performing like a QB3. So I expect another tough game for him. In fact, in another league that I'm in, I actually dropped him in the Superflex league with Darnold out. Yeah, I dropped him. And I'm going to look for other options because it's really bad. I think he's averaging like 9.5 fantasy points per game this year. So we love the talent, but the offensive infrastructure right now doesn't make sense for him.
And that Denver defense is playing out of their mind right now.
Ridiculous.
Patrick Surtain is
Surtain, Riley Cooper.
Man. It looks,
Riley Moss.
It looks
wrong, Riley.
We do a good job with names here on the pod.
The best.
We try our best.
Who else do you hate this week, Raj?
This one hurts me. Geno Smith against the Niners. And I'm a Geno Smith owner. I'm heavily invested in Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. So I'm hoping I'm wrong, but the numbers don't lie. In his last 3 games against the Niners, he's averaged just 205 yards passing per game and only 1 TD and 2 interceptions. And it amounts to a disappointing 9.5 fantasy points. So the Niners can be run on. We saw what happened against the Cardinals on Sunday. They allowed 169 rushing yards. Mind you, half of those were from Kyler Murray, but Geno is no Kyler. So I think as good as Geno has been, they're not passing. They're passing the ball really well, but they're not finishing drives. So I think this is going to be a tough one for Geno Smith and the Seahawks.
They just lost. San Fran just lost to Funga for multiple weeks. I think sprained ligaments in his wrist or something.
Yeah.
So that should
the news dropped today. That's going to be an issue.
That should be interesting for them. What about you, Fab? Who do you hate this week?
I hate Mr. Smelling Salt, Josh Allen. Currently, he is traveling to the Meadowlands to face the New York Jets. The Jets are giving up the least amount of fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Just last week, they gave up 5.26 points to potential comeback player of the year, Mr. Sam Darnold. Their D is legit. No quarterback has scored more than 13.5 points against them this year so far. They're giving up the second least amount of yards, 255, and only 136 passing yards per game. Hello, Sauce Gardner. And they're also 4th in sacks on the year at 18. If Josh Allen is going to want to put up any points, he'll have to rely more on his legs to make anything happen. You're starting him obviously in 2 QB leagues, but I don't really feel good about it. And I think that regardless of the Robert Saleh firing, interim head coach and current defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, he's been Saleh's defensive coordinator since 2021, since Saleh was in there. I'm not really concerned about the D changing all that much. I know Saleh was much more of a defensive-minded head coach, but the interim head coach was a current defensive coordinator, so pretty sure the same schemes are going to exist and there won't be that much variation. I think it's going to be a tough day for Josh Allen in the Meadowlands.
I mean, you're saying you're starting him in 2 QB leagues. You're 100% starting him in 1 QB leagues too.
Yeah, but it's Josh Allen. Like it's not a matchup that I like. Like you're nobody in their right mind. Like he's a start every single week. Nobody in their right mind is ever going to bench Josh Allen, even in 2 QB leagues. Realistically speaking, however, temper your expectations. If you want to be ballsy and bench him for somebody else, if you have other options out there with better matchups, like we just mentioned, I won't blame you for it at all because
I would.
Yeah,
I would judge you if you don't start Josh Allen. Like I agree with your take, Fab, but
I know I'm putting it out there for the audience to decide themselves. Jets defense are legit, man.
But
Like
it's more.
140 passing yards on average. They've
I
only
agree with.
allowed 2 passing touchdowns.
But it's like saying you'd bench CD Lamb versus them, right? Or even now Malik Neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way in hell you're benching these guys.
By the way, thank you for putting Malik Neighbors within that sentence. I
Look,
appreciate that.
you're on top of the world if you bench him and he has an absolute dud. You're on top of the world. You're feeling amazing. But
Yeah,
if you
for
do
sure.
that and he goes off, like I would not live with myself that
And he
weekend.
put up a dud the week before.
He put up
Pissed.
2 duds in a row.
Yeah, he did. You're
He put
absolutely
up 2
right.
duds in a row.
That team has.
Maybe this is the hat trick, or maybe third time's the charm. He's going to actually pull something out. Who knows? But it's the toughest defense to play against. It's divisional game. It's in enemy territory.
Yeah, for sure.
Proceed with caution.
And who's the second matchup you don't like this week?
Brian Robinson Jr. playing at the Baltimore Ravens. Not really much to say here. Baltimore run D has been very good and basically has come as advertised. They have yet to allow a rusher to hit 50 yards, which is pretty impressive, let alone 100, right? So currently Ravens D are giving up 60.4 yards per game. On average, that's collective. I'm saying as an individual rusher, no one's ever hit 50 yards yet. They're giving up the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. Brian Robinson's also a little banged up, so just keep in mind. But if he is playing, I would not even be starting him. He's a low end flex play this week, despite him being pretty good this year from a fantasy perspective. He's been putting up solid points week in and week out, but this is not a matchup that you can trust, and so I would be looking elsewhere this week.
This matchup has potential for shootout, man.
Honestly, this game I know I just called this right now, but this is going to be a very interesting game to watch.
I think on the running back side, Eckler might be the better play here potentially because Baltimore's giving up the 10th most receiving yards to running backs, so that could be an interesting. Either way, you'd probably fire him up anyways as a flex, Eckler, but especially if Brian Robinson could potentially be out.
Yeah, Eckler too is another player that's been sneakily been performing pretty well since the beginning of the season. I mean, that offense in general has just been humming, right? So everyone reaps the benefits of it. But Eckler was a bit more of an afterthought, I think, in the beginning of the season, just because he got traded to a bit of a backfield sort of situation, like a backfield committee situation. But he's been putting up very solid flex numbers week in and week out. So, but I agree with your take, Roger. I think Eckler could be a sneaky good play this week, despite the tough matchup versus the Ravens.
Thanks, Fab. For me, I have Chubba Hubbard versus the Falcons. He's been great the past 3 weeks, putting up 27.9, 22.1, and 17.5 points, respectively, but has had some very plus matchups in those games. In week 6, he gets a Falcons team that gives up the 9th fewest fantasy points, to opposing running backs. And that offense has also been clicking. So Carolina will likely be behind early and often, and will have to rely more on the passing game. So I feel like our little Canadian boy is set to struggle in week 6.
He's Canadian?
Yeah.
He is.
I had no idea. Well, good for him.
I believe it's Vancouver or somewhere in BC.
Well, now I'm going to root for the guy.
I always liked Hubbard. Always
It
liked
is
him.
Chubba, right? It's not Chubba?
Chubba.
You wish it was
Like
Chubba.
Chewbacca.
No, I do not.
But yeah, this will be the second week in a row I take a Carolina Panther in the hate segment.
I see a trend coming.
And lastly, I have Trevor Lawrence at the Bears. It is the game in London. So fantasy managers finally got the game they've been waiting for from Lawrence in week 5. He put up 24.24 fantasy points versus an Indy defense. But I wouldn't get too excited because he gets a Bears secondary giving up the fewest points to QBs through 5 weeks. I believe they were 32nd when I looked at it.
Yeah.
I think Lawrence struggles to even get double-digit fantasy points in week 6. We know how those London games could be. I mean, it's kind of their second home actually, but so they if there's any team that feels comfortable playing there, it's got to be them. But not against this Bears secondary, that's for sure. So I think he goes back to frustrating fantasy managers.
Quick question: is Brian Thomas Jr. set it and forget it in this matchup?
I think he's especially with buys again. I think he's been too good to bench. Um, I think he's becoming that number one option there. There's also Evan Ingram might be set to come back,
Thank
so
God.
maybe weary about like I don't know how much work he's going to get and how many snaps he might play. He might get a 50% snap count. Maybe he's on a pitch count going forward, seeing how that hamstring is. Obviously, you don't want to re-aggravate that. That's the last thing you want to do with him, but that can bring him down a peg or two because he was the main guy last year in that offense. I think Trevor Lawrence misses him a lot.
The thing about Brian Thomas Jr. is that he just needs one deep ball.
Well, exactly.
Like,
I think-
and so I have to start him this week in Bush League just for buys and all that stuff and injuries. But at the same time, it's not a matchup I love, but I'm not too concerned about it, to be honest with you. I'm not saying he's going to get in the end zone, but I still think he's going to put up a decent amount of points. It's going to make him startable this week. He won't be necessarily finishing as a wide receiver 2. I think more of a flex play or low end wide receiver 3, but I think Brian Thomas Jr. is an every week starter. Like, I think he's at that point.
Yeah, I think he's the number one. Like I said, he's the number one option right now in that Jacksonville offense. I'm worried what Evan Ingram does to him when he finally does reach full strength.
No, for sure.
Well, boys, that about wraps up another episode of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. Once again, guys, please follow us on all the social media platforms and look out for our multiple posts daily. Also, make sure to subscribe, like we mentioned, to our YouTube channel and rate our show wherever you get your podcast. Definitely going to help us out. And guys, I'll be at Allegiant Stadium this coming Sunday to watch the Steelers and the Raiders. So I'll be sharing my experience through Instagram. So make sure you look out for that. I'm actually super pumped and excited. So I can't wait to see that stadium.
Bring your Bush League Huddle T-shirt.
100%. I'm only going to be repping Bush League Huddle.
Bush League Huddle on it.
See you all next week, guys. Cue the music, Raj. Yeah.
Seriously, like marker.
We gotta get some
white shirt, like
guys. We gotta get some
marker, right? Like just white shirt, marker.
I could do something on. I could do something on the Canva.
We gotta get some merch. We gotta get some.
Yes,
merch. We gotta figure.
Yes. It'll definitely be coming.
Yeah. Peace out, everyone.
Goodbye.